Well, a very good morning to you from wherever you're tuning in from, and welcome to this edition of Inside Politics, your Sunday premier political show that is making a comeback to your screens as we get to inform you about the latest political developments that happen in the country. It's been a long time coming. It's good to have you with us. Welcome to the broadcast. I'm Jesse Rogers. Do join us as we evaluate the week's top political developments. In a country where there's so much happening, you definitely need someone to highlight what it means to you as a Kenyan citizen. This is your show. Welcome. Feel free to plug into the conversation at KTN News, at the Jesse Rogers. The hashtag to use is Inside Politics. I'm not alone. My colleague Emmanuel To is joining me from the other side of our studios, and he's set to bring us up to speed with the highlights of the week that will form part of the conversation we'll be having right here on the round table. So before I get to introduce my panelists, To, good morning. It's good to see you.
Jesse, definitely it has been quite a week that has seen so many activities, and of course that Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga's AU bid has formed the better part of the conversation this week, where Raila Odinga now says he has secured the backing of at least 7 countries in Africa so far since he declared his candidature for the AU, or rather African Union Commission position. And of course, he says that he has already received the backing of Kenya as the country that is sponsoring him, Uganda, Tanzania, DRC. He's supposed to go to Rwanda to get that vote as well. And of course, he's also saying that he has the support of Sudan and the South African, or rather South Africa, where he was in a meeting with Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the president of South Africa. And so that has been the bigger chunk of the conversation this year, and this week. And of course, another thing that also featured very prominently is the number of votes that Raila Odinga needs to secure before getting that seat that during that election that will be happening next year in February, where that vote is supposed to be at least 34 votes out of the 51 countries that will be participating. Remember, 4 countries have been blacklisted, or rather suspended from the African Union for conducting coups or going through other means that are not proposed by the African Union to get those positions. I'm talking about Niger, Mali, and of course Sudan and Burkina Faso. Those are the countries that may not participate in next year's elections. But of course, something that has also come up very prominently around that conversation is the opposition's next move after the confusion that is there, that is trying to come up, because Raila Odinga has been very prominent and of course key in terms of leading the Azimio brigade. And we saw that in Homa Bay when some of the leaders there asked Raila to name the next person who is going to succeed him. And we have also seen some of the cracks now emerging in the Azimio coalition and of course the opposition, and we've seen another formation that is coming up, and that is the OKA team, the One Kenya Alliance, trying to re-strategize and come back together after they formed that alliance with the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya team ahead of the 2022 general elections. And today we've seen the Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka alongside KANU chairperson, that is Gideon Moi, alongside other leaders, Eugene Wamalwa, Wairia, who is the leader of the Usawa Party, and of course the former governor of Murang'a County. They are currently in Embu for a church service, and they will be showing the direction that they are going to take after this. And of course, something else that also took center stage is the next move for the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, who seems to have been now coming into the position that the current President, William Ruto, was a few years ago when there was that handshake between Raila Odinga and, of course, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And he had said that he had put several traps. To just quote him, he said, "Nimeweka mitego ya kutosha kule State House to ensure that nobody of course, Raila does not get his way into government. And so the leader, of course, that leader from that region, Gachagua, is expected to remain in the Mount Kenya region after camping there for the past 2 days. He has been in Embu for the past 2 days, and he is expected to continue his stay in Embu, or rather Embu today, and of course Laikipia County, to just conclude that trip that he has had in the mountain as he seeks to solidify and re-strategize towards what he is expected to do. And of course, lastly, we have seen the Affordable Housing Bill 2023 going to Senate, and of course we have seen that issue bringing so much issues, or of course so much confusion in the opposition, because some of them are not really coming out forthright after the move that Raila made with William Ruto. And lastly is the discussion that we had with the Jubilee Party Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni, who said that despite these issues, they are still going to put the government to task to ensure that they deliver in the mandate and what they had promised Kenyans. And of course, we had a conversation with him, and we just I wanted to introduce a small bit of that interview that we had, and we'll be getting the full interview in the part of this bulletin as we continue the conversation. Let's listen in to that bite from Kioni.
Mzee, chunga Ruto. Baba, chunga Ruto. Usikaribie zaidi ya hivyo. Hivyo imetosha. Kwanza ukienda Addis, enda kabisa, usikaribie tena. Unakujia pande ya Lake, unaingilia Mombasa, usikujie pande. Usikaribie huyu.
Well, thank you very much. That has been that is what we expect to see from that interview. And of course, we're now going to cross it over back to you, Jesse, for that conversation with the panelists in our other studio. Jesse, over to you.
Well, Emmanuel To, thanks for that update. Definitely looking forward to that conversation with the Secretary General of Jubilee Party, Jeremiah Kioni, on his take on a couple of issues, including Raila's AUC chair bid. That's definitely something to look forward to. Allow me to introduce my panelists. Joining me in studio already, familiar faces and a new face to the round table. I'm joined by Dismas Mukua, political risk analyst. Thank you so much for your time. Karibu sana. It's good to have you with us. Equally joined by Hesbon Owila, communication strategist. Karibu sana. It's been a while.
Sante sana, it's been a while. I'm glad to be back.
You look happy. Inside Politics is back, yeah? Definitely good to have you with us. And he goes with the name Haman Manyora, a renowned political analyst. It's a pleasure to have you with us. We call him Prof, because he's a professor of politics in terms of his insights. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
It's good to have you with us.
Yes.
We're expecting Maliba Arnold a little bit later on, but the show must continue. And before we engage, gentlemen, let's just take a look at what has played out in the course of the week in regards to Raila Odinga's AU Commission chairperson bid. We definitely saw him make public his intention to vie for that position over a fortnight ago. We've seen clamor around those supporting his bid, including President William Ruto, the president of the host country, which is necessary in terms of his success in that particular bid. As Emmanuel To mentioned, perhaps a minimum of 34 votes for Raila to secure that particular position, which election will be coming next year. So a lot of time to clamor and to sort of, try and bring countries under his bid. So let's take a look at what has been said in the course of the week. Just some sound bites from Homa Bay, where Raila was in, including President William Ruto last week. We equally saw Raila in Kisii, where he made a couple of statements. Let's listen in.
Niliwaambia tutapanga maneno kabisa na hakuna mtu atakuwa loser kwa hii kitu. Tutapanga ndio kila mtu apate kasehemu kidogo ndio tuende mbele. Si ndio? Si nilisema pale kwa soko. Amuku niamini siku hiyo, lakini sasa maneno inaendelea namna hiyo.
Not going anywhere. I'm around. I've been running around trying to get support from different heads of states. And both of them agreed that they would support me. President Museveni said he would be the one to propose me as the chair of African Union Commission.
Baba, Umepangaje? Umetupangiaje?
We hope you are going to be able to tell us that our children, my children, have held your hands. You know the potential of each of these children. What do we do so that even when you are away, we are able to hold fort?
Sawa. Nikienda Addis Ababa hapa ni saa 2 tuna ndege. Nalala hapa Kisii, asubuhi natoka na ndege, saa 4 nimefika kule, nafanya kazi. Siku Friday mimi narudi. Sasa mimi niko hapa. Na mkinitaka kwa kazi ile nyingine yote, mimi niko.
Wewe mzee sikia. We have no business within our government. Hatuna haja na hatugojei wewe, we are not looking for you and we have no time. The last time uliingia serikali ya Uhuru Kenyatta aliharibu wako haribu. Mungetaka akaribie serikali yetu? Mungetaka akaribie? Stop saying that people can force you to come to this government. Forget about being forced or coerced. We are not interested because sisi tuko na kazi ya kufanya.
Well, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's sentiments shared a little bit earlier on last year, of course, in reference to Raila Odinga and what he had mentioned then as clamor for him to join the Kenya Kwanza government. How time flies, a day in politics is a lifetime, as they say. We're joined by Maliba Arnold. Thank you so much for your time. Karibu to the round table. Let's start with what exactly this move means to the opposition. And I'll start with you, Dismas, just briefly, because Raila has been the face of opposition politics for decades. He is the de facto opposition leader. Some call him the enigma of Kenyan politics. So as he makes this transition, what exactly does this mean for Azimio? Will there be an Azimio in 2027 through your political lens?
Well, you know, today is Sunday, so the Bible indicates there is a time and season for everything. So Mr. Raila Odinga has had his good time in the Kenyan political space, and if he secures the AUC role, then he must give way. And again, we are told that in science that a vacuum cannot exist. So the moment he leaves the Azimio leadership or ODM leadership, somebody else will obviously come in and fill the position. But the question is whether or not the person who will come to fill the position will have Mr. Raila's capacity and competence to be a very effective opposition leader. And I mean, as people have indicated, Mr. Raila Odinga has got a very unique emotional connection with Kenyans, having been around for a long time. So he understands Kenya like the back of his hand. So there's a very high chance that whoever is going to fill the vacuum may not have Mr. Raila's capacity nor competence. But as he moves to this AUC role, he must resist the temptation to keep on commenting about local issues and making his diary public. For instance, he was in my village, Marani, next to Mososho, and then he tells people that he's going to Rwanda to meet with President Kagame. When you're campaigning for this serious role, you must know the do's and don'ts for this position. Maybe he needs people like Mr. Esbono Wheeler to give him a communication strategy on the do's and don'ts. You cannot tell people in Homa Bay that I'll take this AUC role, but I'm only 2 hours away. The people who will make Raila Odinga the chair of AUC expect him to behave in a certain manner, that he's not going to be engaging in Kenyan politics while serving that role. So he needs to, actually, in my view, he needs to maintain radio silence, execute his strategy without making public all his movements and actions.
Okay, interesting. As Owila, you come in, power abhors vacuum. We've definitely had that from Dismas. Talk to us about what the next move should be for the remaining Azimio leaders. We've seen Kalonzo Musyoka heading to Embu County today, Meet the People tour, and with him is KANU leader Gideon Moi and equally the DAP Kenya party leader Eugene Wamalwa. Is this time to jump up and take the bull by its horns and assume leadership of Azimio?
Well, I want to believe that what is happening has actually jolted a number of leaders into thinking that there could be, a situation where they have to assert themselves. Because as they say, no one is going to give anyone, political clout that they've built, but you have to assert yourself. That emotional connection that Raila Odinga has with Kenyans has been built over time, has been built by a history and a tradition of fighting for the common interest of the common mwananchi over time. And I don't think it's going to be easy for anyone to take that mantle, whether in Azimio or in ODM, just on a silver platter. They've got to assert themselves. And you can see that the AUC discourse has actually jolted a lot of politicians. Gideon Moi has not been in the public scene for some period of time. I think Kalonzo Musyoka has not been very active, other than the other time that Raila said he might be the Azimio candidate. So they've come to the fore, and I think it's good for the common mwananchi, because when they then come, they have to articulate issues. And I think when they articulate issues, the only way they can endear themselves to the public is when they articulate issues that are in the interest of the public. And I think to that extent, I want to believe that it's a good thing. Actually, this AU discourse is a fairly good thing, because on the one hand, it has sorted a lot of Azimio problems. Because if you ask me, I think the whole idea of Azimio moving forward was getting a little bit complicated, But with Baba's eminent exit to a position that is even more respectable, then it simply means that one problem has been solved for them. What are we going to do with our presidential candidate who didn't win in 2022 going forward? So that is technically out, because even if Baba says that, Addis Ababa is just 2 hours from now, the whole process, and Kenyans need to be alive to the fact that he has not yet clinched this. There's still a long way to go. It's a very intricate, diplomatic, international kind of campaign process, and has very little to the noise, little to do with the noise that will be made in Homa Bay, in Kisii, because they don't amount to anything. I mean, the fact that, the president of Kenya has already endorsed Raila's candidature, that is good enough. So it transcends the conversations in Kenya to other countries. And one of the key things that will happen is he will have to make a presentation. As a candidate, he'll have to make a presentation to the AU heads of states, all of them. And I think most of the questions will be on how do you navigate local and AU politics. And I think he'll be put to task. And to that extent, you can actually tell that whatever he's going to articulate in that forum will most probably negate most of the things that he's saying, because he can't go there and tell them, I'll also be involved in Kenyan politics, And that is good for us, because then it means that people have to assert themselves within Azimio, and they can only assert themselves by keeping the government of the day in check. And then number two, I think the government of the day, the regime, also believes that by having Raila at a more advanced AU level, they'll have their way to sort the issues locally. And I think that's dangerous, because if by having their way means that they'll pass, bills, they'll do everything that they've always wanted to do, and with the tradition that we've seen, I think it's likely to bite them going forward, And if they were to do that and there is, an Azimio leadership that will keep them in check, a leader will naturally emerge from Azimio, naturally, based on what they will do for Kenyans, not because Raila will say this is the leader.
Okay. Manyora, as you come in, let's talk about the bigger picture, because he's mentioned that it might be an improbable situation for Raila to handle local politics and still assume that position if and when he becomes the AUC chair. Do you see that as a possibility, that it's just 2 hours away? I can easily get a flight, come back, sort local politics and go back. But equally, talk to us about quid pro quo, scratch my back, scratch yours. In such a situation, does this sort of take Kenya's opposition 5 steps backwards in terms of fighting for the plight of the common mwananchi? Because Raila can't call for, let's say, maandamano right now, because it will reflect negatively on his ambitions for the AUC chair. Your take?
Yeah, well, let's begin by why Raila is speaking the way he's speaking, talking to his people. He's talking to his people. He's massaging the egos of the people. He's managing the expectations. He knows the anxiety, and you don't expect him to talk like that when he meets AU heads of state, certainly, and like he says, that's true. In terms of 5 steps or even 5 or 3 backwards, I think there'll be more than that. I think the game plan here is very simple. Is to give Ruto the peace he needs to do his thing from now to 2027 and beyond. That's the game. And according to me, there will basically be no opposition against Ruto in 2027. If you interpret that to mean Ruto and his people will have a free hand to do what they want, then you are justified to interpret like that. But the truth is, under normal circumstances, the opposition is now dead completely. And there are only maybe 1 or 2 or 3 ways that Ruto can face a challenge in 2027. One is from within. If either Mudavadi or Rigathi Gachagua have those things people mention, which you can't mention on TV, and they can face him, that will be a very serious opposition.
Okay.
For Gachagua, if, like Colin says, Ruto becomes too comfortable with Raila now, with Raila on board, he decides Gachagua means nothing, Mount Kenya means nothing, because with Raila he has Western, and he decides to play monkey business with Mount Kenya and Gachagua.
Okay.
Opposition could come from Gachagua, from that direction. Or if Mudavadi fails, the other opposition might come from Raila himself. You can't predict Raila. Raila can dine with you, and in the evening or tomorrow he turns against you. He turned against Moi and led people out of Kano within a year after joining Kano.
Okay.
So Raila could do his 2 years, and at the end of 2026, he just comes. It won't be too short. In 2021, Raila came on in November to do the 2022 election. So end of 2026 for Raila, having done 2 years, would be time enough to face Ruto. That is another possibility. But the greater possibility is the complacency he's talking about. If you get too comfortable, now that there's no opposition, Kalonzo is in check, Raila is in check, because this game could involve people like Kalonzo. We give you this office of official opposition, you enjoy the fruits of independence, Matunda ya Uhuru. 2027, you give token opposition, I beat you, you come back to an even fatter opposition office.
Okay.
So, the bigger problem to me, if they got that complacent, that comfortable, to try and do anything with the people of this country, the people of this country, in a wave, can sweep all of them out of power.
Interesting. As you come in, Maliba, because there are those who are calling the truce between Ruto and Raila a handshake 2.0. Like it's something reincarnated from what we saw between former President Uhuru Kenyatta and the ODM leader Raila Odinga. How exactly do you see this working out, perhaps to the benefit of democracy within the country? Because some are poking holes into the strength of the opposition when Raila will be missing in action, if so, yeah.
Well, if it were a handshake, it wouldn't be 2.0, because we had a handshake in just before the 2 elections. He's alluded to it partially. That should have been the handshake 1.0. There was, of course, the Government of National Unity in 2007, 2008, of course, coming all the way to 2013. That should have been the handshake 2.0. 2.3, of course, all of us are still live to it, 2018 to 2022. And then now we have what we have at the moment. I wouldn't actually qualify it as a handshake, but it's a process that I think, number one, is an imperative of demographics. Today, Raila is 79. In 2027, he will be circa 84. That points to one thing, that what is the bulk of the voters? A lot of times, people don't want to actually refer to that. What is happening right under our nose is what I call a generational handover. There is a generational handover that is actually happening. And people like Dismas, people like Owila, myself, yourself, are actually the people now who are actually at the pole position of actually coming in. And they will be in that particular influential position for the next 18 to 25 years, depending on how well they play it. And if they can actually onboard, if they can actually play well and manage Gen Zers who are actually coming very fast, because there are about 6 million of them who are already in the age of majority who could vote. But then the bulk of Gen Zers are still under the age of minority. But then quickly to actually probably give a little bit of flesh to this is that number one, Raila is Azimio and Azimio is Raila. In the absence of Raila Odinga, there is no Azimio. That is just as factual as it remains. You can get round, you can get all the other questions are qualitative questions, but quantitatively, Raila is Azimio and Azimio is Raila Odinga, without which the others are support cast. Now, his anticipated exit, whether it's through the AUC or whether he retires, has got quite an impact on the Kenyan political landscape. Number one, there are people who've made a career by simply attacking Raila Odinga. Being anti-Raila has actually made people, you don't have any other substance that you bring to the political table, you only bring anti-Raila venom, and you are able to actually win. So many people have sustained that. His exit will actually ensure that those particular individuals have nothing actually to offer. Then there is this actually bigger army that actually has been in politics for simply two things: to defend quote-unquote Baba and to support Baba. We defend and support Baba. Now, and that is why I actually think that AUC presents an opportunity for Baba to exit the political scene, in my opinion, with dignity and safely, so that he doesn't die on the battlefield. Because the team that I've actually mentioned behind, especially the team that expects that has always survived in politics because of Baba, that team is willing to do everything to ensure that he remains on the political scene for their relevance. Because without him, and you will allow me to mix a little bit of words here, both English and Kiswahili, that without Baba, the anti-Raila forces that have been, for example, in Western, Nyanza and Coast, will really give a good thrashing to these particular people. I can mention a few. If you look at people like Owidi, for example, today they look small, because they are sparring with a giant. In the absence of the giant, the person who spars with the giant is quite skilled. So the Owidis of this world, the Onyangolos, the Eliud Owalo, could easily become quite dangerous. The same would apply in Western, the same would apply in Coast, where I would call that if Raila, anything were to happen and he ends up at the AUC, then we are going to have serious political funerals in Western, Nyanza and Coast. Allow me to actually probably round this before we go to the next level.
In a minute,
You know, the AUC seat is a full-time diplomatic job. When Baba says that he will be around here, Baba is managing his base, so that then there is not a lot of fighting before the deed is done. For the simple reason, I suspect Baba wants to exit the political scene like Alexander the Great. That whoever is strong amongst you should emerge. I say that because, number one, I have seen Mama Ida Odinga point to Mbadi, yet his brother, who is also so close to him, that is Senator for Siaya, Oburu Odinga, has proposed to Wandai. So I do not think that that is somehow a strategy that is far removed from each other. I think it's one, so that you propose for Opio Wandai, those who are against Wandai will actually rise up and say, no, we cannot take that guy. Then those who are against Mbadi rise up, and then he will say, okay, may the strong amongst you rise, and somebody else, probably like Professor Nyang' Nyong'o, can actually be the interim.
Interesting. So we find ourselves in a transition phase, according to you, and equally alludes to the ODM political offense, who might perhaps get the lesser part of this deal if it actually goes through. Let's take a short break. As we come back, I'd like to focus on Mount Kenya. My colleague Emmanuel To has done an interview with Jeremiah Kioni, reflects on this particular move and what it means for the region. And equally, we'll try and take a look at what it means for Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Mind you, alisema alieka mitego huyo mzee asiingie State House, but it seems to be working to the contrary. So we'll be back with that and much more. Stay within.